I went to London, and have any of you guys been to London before or ever heard of London?
Have you ever heard about London, guys?
Yeah? Where have you guys heard of it before?
Yes, are you sure? You've been to London? Okay.
Okay, so London is in England, which is in the United Kingdom, and it's in Europe. So it's pretty far from where all of us are living, but it's a really cool place, and that's where I went this summer. And today I'll be sharing some of my highlights of my trip and some of the cool places that I went. So the first place is Westminster Abbey, and Westminster Abbey is a church, and it's a place where most royal weddings occur. And also on the right is Big Ben, and it's a very famous tower. It's also a clock, and it's very famous for its bell chimes, which chimes every hour. And Westminster Abbey is also a place where kings and queens are buried. And all over the church, you can see tombstones of kings and queens and a lot of famous scientists and inventors and people who have contributed to British society. And this is a picture I took of Big Ben, and although right now it's currently under construction, so we weren't able to go inside, but I've heard that it's really cool, and the architecture in there is really amazing as well. Once you go inside Westminster Abbey, you'll see lots of big arches and very tall ceilings, and it's a very cool place. And I think one of the most fascinating things about this place is that it's extremely old and it's still standing today. So this type of architecture is seen all over England and all throughout Europe, actually. So some of the places that I'm going to be talking about today also have very similar architecture, which is this one in particular is called Gothic architecture. So it's a particular type of architecture that has big arches and very fancy carvings. There's a lot of other stuff related to it, but it's a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it. But if you ever are interested in Gothic architecture, Westminster Abbey is a great example of it. And a few of the famous people buried there are William Shakespeare, who is and William Shakespeare is a poet, and he's a pretty famous poet. He's written a lot of famous plays as well. Maybe when you guys are older, or maybe even now, you guys have heard of some of his plays like Romeo and Juliet or A Midsummer Night's Dream. And even if maybe the script is not the most exciting to read, the plays are really interesting because there are a lot of scenes that require lots of emotions. And overall, he's a person that has contributed a lot to British literature and literature in general. And then Isaac Newton is a famous scientist, and Stephen Hawking, who recently passed away, is also a very famous, I believe he's a physicist, and they've all contributed a lot to society. So all these people that are buried here have in some way contributed to the society, whether it's through art, through science, or through even participating in war, fighting for your country. And so some other places that also have very similar architecture to Westminster Abbey are King's College Chapel, which is another church that's part of Cambridge colleges. And I believe it's also in Gothic. It's built during the era of Gothic architecture. And the reason why it's called King's College is because it's built by King Henry VIII, I believe. And the architecture is similar in the way that it also has arches and stained glass art. And overall, in general, because it's also a church, they look very similar. And the same can be said for St. Paul's Cathedral and this Cotswold Church. And this church on my right, I don't remember the name of it, but the place that it's located in is very famous for its very aesthetic, or it's a very pretty place. So just like the rest of its surroundings, it's built in a very old age, but surprisingly, there's all still standing today. So that's great. If you ever visit London, you'll definitely see these all over the place because there's so many of them. But if you go inside, you'll be amazed at once by all the architecture and everything. And then moving on, in England, or in Europe mostly, there are a lot of castles and palaces, and Windsor Castle in particular is probably one of the prettiest castles that we visited. And if you look at storybooks or picture books and you see pictures of castles, Windsor Castle is exactly like that. It really is a very, very pretty place. And that's actually where Queen Elizabeth II currently lives. So although when we were visiting at the time, I don't believe she was inside, but that is where she would normally live. And then Buckingham Palace, which is the one on the left, is where the Queen works. So that's where she would visit government officials and do all sorts of government-related things. And although from the outside it doesn't look as pretty as Windsor Castle, the inside is really cool. Currently, I believe they have an exhibition so you can go inside and see what it looks like. But yeah, and at the time of when I took that picture, it was actually during a ceremony, and it's called the Changing of the Guards. And what this ceremony is guards would come in through that way, or from the right or the left, and then they would enter through these gates in the middle. And then in there, the guards would change shifts. So then the ones that were inside would leave, and then ones outside would go inside so they could continue on with their jobs. And I actually have a video. Yeah, it's from the time when they come in. So it's about 2 minutes, 30 seconds long, yes. So as they're walking away, some more information about this is that they actually hold this ceremony all throughout England, wherever there are guards stationed there. And they do this every single day. So every day they would play music as they march to the gates and change their guards. And then even as they change their guards, they would continue to play music as many people watch from the streets. And as you can see, there are a lot of people there, but as you get closer to the gates, there are even more people. It's so crowded that sometimes, well, a lot of people can get squished. So moving on, the next place I want to talk about is Kensington Palace. So Kensington Palace is where Prince William and Princess Kate live, and this specific spot is the Princess Diana Memorial. And the reason why I chose this place to talk about is not only because it's pretty, but also because it holds a lot of significance in, I wouldn't say British history, but to, I guess, current times, because Princess Diana, who is the mother of Prince William and Prince Harry, she passed away many years ago, but because she was so well loved by public and just common people, her sons actually wanted to build a memorial for her. So where Kensington Palace is located, it's in a park called Hyde Park, and there are 2 memorials for her. So this is one of them, and then another one is called the Princess Diana Fountain, which is further down in the park. And then there's also a playground for it. So there are so in general, there's a lot of memorials for her around that area, and it's a really pretty place. And I actually have a short video of just the surrounding landscape of it. If you ever get a chance to go to London, this is one of the spots, because it's really pretty. And they used to let people go inside, but because people were not treating it well, they closed it off to the public. But the surrounding area is really nice. And I think this is the second to last thing I want to talk about is the Harry Potter behind the scenes tour. And have you guys ever heard of Harry Potter or ever read the books or the film, or you watched the film?
Have you ever heard Harry Potter, guys? Heard about Harry Potter?
What it?
You don't know? Not helicopter. Harry Potter is like wizard or yeah.
Easier.
Yeah, Harry Potter.
I don't know.
Okay, they don't know, man.
Okay. So, maybe if when you guys are older, you guys can read Harry Potter. It's a 7-book series. Well, technically there's 8 books, but the 8th book is more of a sequel. But Harry Potter is a pretty famous book series, and it's really good. So if you ever need book recommendations, if you ever want to read these books, this is definitely a great book to read. And Harry Potter, the book series, is basically about Harry Potter and his adventures through the wizarding world. So Harry Potter finds out he is a wizard, and when he finds out he's a wizard, he goes through so many adventures to defeat a villain called Lord Voldemort. And through these 7 books, you can go through the adventures with him, and it's really great book series. So yes, and there's also the film series. So in London, they have a behind the scenes tour for their the movie series, and it was my favorite part of the trip because I like the book series and the films as well. So they let you walk through all the sets that they have, and then you can see the original costumes that the actors and actresses wore. And then so here are the outfits. So I'm not going to say who's who because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but if you ever go to London, you have to go. If you can get tickets, you have to go here if you're a Harry Potter fan, because it's so cool because you get to see how they make the movie, and you can see the different props that they used. And I think, yes, this is a prop slide. So because they're wizards, they all have wands, and they have magical creatures of all sorts. And so here on my left are all the wands that the main characters used for the series. And because each character has their own unique wand, it's really cool to see all of them there. And I believe you can also buy them, but I'm not quite sure where. But yes, you can see a lot of the props, and this on the bottom is called a hippogriff, and you can also see props and costumes like this all throughout the tour. And it's really an amazing experience. So you can also see the sets. So here on the top right is the castle where the wizards go to school. So it's called Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And this is actually a mini set. So it's actually not the whole thing. So this would be the map or what the filmmakers would use to create their scenes. So if they need overhead shots or if they need a whole castle view, then they would use this. And then you can also see some of the props, which is this. This is actually a triple-decker bus. It's not even a double-decker bus. So they create special sets like this, and it's really amazing. So if you ever read the book series or if you watch the films and you end up liking it a lot and you have a chance to go to London, you have to go here if you can. So yes. And then as I close this off, I want to mention a few other places that are really cool in London. So on my left, there's the London Eye. It's basically a Ferris wheel, but it's called the London Eye because it's in London. And if you ride it, you can see a beautiful skyline of London, and it's really nice. And yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. And then in the middle is Tower Bridge, which is a really famous bridge because of its architecture. And you can actually climb to the top over here, and then you can walk across. So that one was pretty cool. And then on my right is Royal Albert Hall, which is a performance center. And we actually watched Beethoven's Fifth Symphony there one night while we were on our trip, and it was really cool. So if you're interested in music or arts, and you come to London, you should check out Royal Albert Hall because they have really cool shows. And yeah, do you guys have any questions?
The bridge is so cool. A two castle in there.
The two castles?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're really cool too.
And the mural is so cool.
Yeah.
The London Eye.
Oh, the London Eye? Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually, yeah, if you go there, it's actually really big. It's super tall. Yeah.
But the bridge is really long.
Oh yeah, the bridges are really long. You can, because London is split like this, so then the bridges connect them, and because the river is really wide, the bridge is also very long. Yeah.
Today I go in a movie with my mom.
Oh, you went to London with your mom?
Yeah, I go in a movie.
Wow.
She's going to the movie with your mom. Not London, right?
Oh, not London.
Yeah, movie to watch some movies. I think that's all, guys, from Amanda. So, what do you say to Amanda?
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
See you next time.
Yep. See you next time.